Okay. Thank you for joining another edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And I'm joined by the usual suspect, my man, Michael Pless. How you doing tonight, Michael?
Oh man, doing good. Glad to be back. Week of vacation was fun, and got a little bit away. It's always good to get away. So, and the Bucs made some moves. So, how about that?
I want to thank the Bucs because now I can close down my counseling session for wayward fans that are stressed out about all the things that have been going on. I was going to counsel these people. I had a phone number and everything set up. I don't have a license, but I'll tell them it's going to be all right, And I'm just glad they made some moves. I really am. Special guest tonight, old school from What the Buck, real close friend of mine. And just side story here, I got into this because I got to listen to him and I got sick of what I was hearing on the radio. And I listened to what he said and it resonated with me. And I was like, you know what? This guy's got a voice. I may not always agree with what he said, but I understand where he's going with his, what he's saying. And it made me appreciate it. And I was like, you know what? I appreciate that. Maybe I can do this. And so I started kind of, getting into my podcast because of him paving the way for people like myself to get out there and express themselves, because at the end of the day, we're all fans. And that's what it all comes down to, is supporting our team. And I'm not, and before I get to you here real quick, just the things that he does philanthropically is just amazing because he gives from his heart. The guy's got a heart the size of the world, just what he does, from his heart to help people. He shows that, we are our brother's keeper. We can go out here and make a difference for people that aren't as fortunate as we are. And, those are some of the things that I really appreciate you. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great, man. I appreciate to get out and do some of these philanthropic things. We can all root for teams. We can root for football teams, soccer teams, basketball teams. Hell, my team in India root for teams. I don't even know what a cricket is. But the community is what transcends the game that starts with the whistle and ends with the whistle, right? So we can have bad seasons, and God knows as Bucs fans, we've gone through a lot of them. But the thing that changed was when I go back to the tailgate to clean up afterwards, I'm not kicking, cans around and throwing stuff over and being pissed. I'm going back with people that I consider family, and we're going to commiserate a little bit, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to try and do some good things outside of the frustration. So it's always great to the podcast on this, and I love all of the ecosystem that's developed. I would call it more coincidentally than it's more correlation than causation. But it's good to see everyone finding their voice because, like you said, we're not always going to agree with everyone. We don't always want to go find an echo chamber. Sometimes we want to find a dissenting opinion. Sometimes we want to find a different approach or a different tactic. But it's nice that in the podcast world, we can all kind of choose that model that we like, and we can find a tribe that enjoys it, whether they agree or not. So thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, all right. And as Michael Pless had mentioned earlier, the Bucs have made some moves. And, people can come off the ledges now. You can close your window up and you can just kind of take that deep breath, because at the end of the day, the Bucs have made some moves. People may not agree with the moves that were made, but, again, if you take a step back and look at the big picture, the fact that they were able to sign a lot of their own at first, and then they were able to bring in some different pieces and try to, kind of fix some things that have been a liability over the past season. On paper, these look like good moves. I mean, from the kicker to the defensive line to re-signing Mike Evans. Again, you bring in a Vinny Curry. Some of these other players, you re-sign Cameron Lynch. Just different moves like this. They don't look sexy, but again, we're going to see if these are moves that may benefit the Bucs on the back end of the season, which is, where it all counts right there. So, I just want to get your opinion. What do you think about that idea that, I know on paper it looks good. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But what do you think so far?
Are you asking me or Michael?
You.
Oh, okay. So here's the thing, and I know that I'm in the corner of fans that are derided currently. I think that your first job as a team is to sign the talent that you have now, that you've invested in, that you believe in. I think there's a lot of fans out there that don't believe in that talent, that think that we were far worse than the record showed last year, as opposed to potentially better, when you think about the changes that could have happened throughout the season. And that's fine. They have every right to that position, however it's based. I happen to think that the re-signings made a lot of sense. I know that the only one that probably could be easily argued, even though I think if you watch the tape, it can't really be argued, is Chris Conte. I think that continuity in the safety position makes sense. He understands the safety position, despite what some folks who don't understand how the safety position is played will tell you. But when you look at the Mike Evans thing, Cam Lynch, you go top of the order to bottom of the order, those are things that they are securing guys in contracts that help make the team better. Now, do they add 4 wins to the team by just re-signing them? No, that's not how signatures work, right? You got to get those guys locked in. You got to have a plan for the guys moving forward, like the Jameis Winstons of the world, like the Donovan Smiths of the world, even though people don't like it. So then you go, well, what can they go get at the grocery store that will make the team better? Where can they upgrade? And you guys know, we've been talking about it on Twitter. Our boy Chris from Bucs Brief Pod over the Jensen acquisition. He's been banging this drum forever. I don't think he's had a day without an erection since, which is great. I think it was a great pickup. I think it solidifies the line. I still think we're one piece away on that line, but that's a hell of a piece to get on that line. And that line makes everything on the offense better. And if you look at what we've all talked about, yes, we can be pissed about the defense and pissed about lack of pressure and pissed about our secondary. But if we score one more touchdown instead of a field goal, our record is different last year. If all of a sudden in the red zone we can impose 2 yards when it matters, we score more touchdowns. If you give Jameis half a second longer, right? These are things that make those games go from L's to W's potentially. And then it becomes almost like a shell game. Like, I think Vinny Curry is an upgrade. I like Robert Ayers. I love Clinton McDonald. But the crew that we had here wasn't getting it done as a platoon. And so you're going to get guys and hope that one of them is a little bit better than the one that you replaced them with, right? And I think that that's the attempt that they did on the defensive line. I thought they brought in some good talent. Now we'll see whether you can make – you got some good ingredients. Now let's see if we can make a good soup.
Yeah, there you go. And what people are failing to realize is that this is not the 2003 Buccaneers. The offense is the strength of this team. It's not the defense. The defense was a liability. The offense is the strength of this team now, with the weapons that they have. If they can put all that together, they get a running back. That's kind of a scary thought. I know a lot of people don't see it, but that's just what you have with Deshaun Jackson, OJ Howard. You've got Cameron Brate coming back. You got Chris Godwin and other weapons that I'm sure I've kind of missed on. Once they get it, if they can get a running game going, it's a game changer. It's a totally different scene than what you saw last year. This is the strength of this team. It's not the defense, but the defense, because of like the running game, that was a liability. Mike, I like the point that you brought up about the Buffalo Bills game. They ran the ball. They ran the ball. That's how they won that game. They ran the ball. And just being able to stop the run it covers up a lot of things. I look at the Arizona Cardinals game. The Cardinals game, what did Adrian Peterson, 134 yards. I know I keep bringing this up, but this guy was a third string back for the Saints. And then, he comes over to the Arizona Cardinals and he's their starter because everybody's injured and he runs for all these yards. And it shouldn't have happened. It just shouldn't have happened. And deep offenses were getting yards in chunks. And that was just what's frustrating. It was frustrating to watch that, because you're thinking, oh, okay, they're going to stop the run, and they just didn't. Stopping the run was just a liability. And just what they've been able to do, they realize that's what's going on, and they're going out of their way to try to address that as much as possible. Now, Old School, I want to ask you, do you feel like there's a lot of talent in the free agency market this year?
No, not really. But then again, I mean, here's the thing. Again, I'm the guy that makes all the unpopular statements. I'm the unsexy commenter, right? Yeah. If it were easy to go buy talent and build the next Super Bowl championship, it would happen every year, and it doesn't. You see people try and build dream teams. Hell, we've tried it before. You plug these pieces in, and all of a sudden you realize that they're not, in fact, puzzle pieces. This isn't, in fact, Madden, and it requires cohesion. So my bigger concern isn't about what other toys are out there that we could go collect and try and put into our toy box. my biggest concern is whether our coaching staff that is still here, the members that are still here, have learned from what they did well last year and what they did poorly last year. Because when you look at the things you just brought up about stopping the run, it wasn't just stopping the run. It was about being predictable on defense. Now, whether that was a byproduct of lack of talent that they could put on the field, so schematically they were handcuffed, or whether it's because they are schematically retarded, right? And I don't mean that as an offensive term, but I mean, Jesus Christ, if you're playing 11 yards off the receivers, they're going to be able to catch the ball 5 yards out. You know, there's one thing to play sticks defense, and there's another one to just play stupid in coverage. The other thing is if your defensive line can't set their edge, guess what? You're done. Contain's broken. Yeah. Now, whether that's Coach Smith's fault or whether that's, individual coordinator's fault or player's fault, some combination thereof, you have to become brilliant in the basics, right? And that's my biggest concern. It has nothing to do with a new jersey with new names on it. It has everything to do with, can they get in there and block on offense? Can they get in there and tackle on defense? Can they figure out how to stop quarterbacks from being able to complete passes at a high percentage against our defense, whatever format that is, be it 3-4, 4-3, zone, press man. Listen, we can talk about all that shit until we're blue in the face. But if they don't execute whatever the scheme is that they've been told to run, it doesn't matter.
There you go.
Yeah.
Plus.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what they've done, I look at it this way, free agency, and Derek said it, there's not much talent going to be in free agency. There really never is. The good guys, they get re-signed. But I look at it this way. We're trying to upgrade ourselves both in the run game and pretty much on both sides of the ball. So run offense and run defense, that.
Did we lose you?
Yeah, if we can use the action game. Oh.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought we lost you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what I was saying is, I think the main focus was to improve the run defense and the run offense pretty much. You look at our and stronger on the defensive line. Guys that they know how to stop the run. Bo Allen is a guy that can take double teams and make plays. And then you look at on the offensive side of the ball, you get Ryan Jensen, who is going to upgrade our offensive line, and you put him at center, and then you have Ali Marpet back at right guard. I think it's just going to help our running game that much more. And I just like what their mindset is, and that's getting more physical, more nasty up front on both sides of the ball, and that's something this team needs. And I think it's a good start. And again, now. And like Derek said, it's now up to the coaches. You can get all the talent you can get, but if these guys can't coach them up, then it's not going to really matter. You have to put them in positions to succeed. You got to have a good scheme, and you got to be able to go out there and execute.
Yeah, most definitely. And on top of that, the one thing that kind of frustrated me, and I know these things happen in football, are injuries. I know, especially in 2016, there were a lot of injuries on the front end of the season. And it really affected the team, and they didn't really catch their groove until the end of the season. Last year, we saw injuries as well to key players that the Bucs were depending on because of a lack of depth. And I'm not even going to go into that. I've gone into that I don't know how many times about how bare the cupboard's been on the D line for I don't know how many years, and they just haven't properly addressed it. But at this point, this is the Bucs realize, as much as we talk about it, as much as fans, as much on Twitter, you can go to any social media site. They realize that, the defensive line is it needs help. It needs attention. And so that's what they kind of went out and did, was to address that. And, again, I'm not going to get into predictions of what the team is going to do this year, or, just kind of have to sit back and wait. And my stance has been week 6. I'll have an idea of what this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team has done through free agency, the draft, camp, preseason, going into the regular season. I'll have an idea of what kind of team you have about week 6. So until that time, I'll just kind of take a wait and see approach on this. But, one of the players that I did want to ask you about, because I'm not real sure, what they were thinking when they were signing him, or, if it was a good move or not, was Will Clark. I know the Bucs brought Will Clark back, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, was this a good move to bring him back? Did he do enough to, be brought back in.
Well, when you look at D-line, it's funny because you just went into a discussion about D-line that I think is incredibly pertinent. And before I get into that, though, Ren, you're absolutely right. Gumbo is better than soup. My comparison would have been better if I had said gumbo.
That sounds good.
When you look at the great defenses of the past with the Buccaneers, the old adage, the best ability is availability, comes to mind. You know, the Greg Spires of the world weren't individually, world beaters, but they were there. They played next to the same guys. They didn't get injured. They were always in there putting in work. You could platoon them. They knew the system. If they were supposed to be on an assignment, they were in their assignment. So I think what you'll see this staff trying to do, and whether it's with guys like Will Clark or other guys that maybe we don't know the names of necessarily, if they fit a body type, if they have the athleticism, if they feel coachable, then they're going to get enough of those guys into a system that they can figure out who's going to be the healthier ones. They have to make that gamble, but they're going to create a pile of them and then stock the roster with the ones they want first, then try and hide some away. So Will Clark by himself, I think this is sort of a vestige of what excessive amounts of data has allowed people like you and me and Michael to do, right? We could go and analyze the shit out of people who in the past no one would have even known. You wouldn't know the 5th or the 6th or the 8th defensive lineman on your team 15 years ago. No one would have given two shits about that guy's stats, where he played college ball. What you do is your heart would be in your throat when 1 through 4 went down, and you'd hope insert guy here could play football.
Right.
But now we're left to perseverate over the stats of a guy who normally we wouldn't even see when he got into the game because he's just spelling the guy whose name was on a jersey that we wear. So I think it's fun for us who like analytics. I think it's interesting from a chess perspective when it comes to the game. But I think if you're going to look for some magic thing that tells you Will Clark is the salvation of the defensive line, you're going to come away with an empty pot. It's not there.
Yeah, well, just knowing that he was able to come in and play when we had players down, that's how I know, about him. And again, he had that want to, as Michael talks about, having that want to, getting out there and playing. It's not just I'm starting, I'm just going to go out here, but actually wanting to go out there and try to get after the quarterback or get pressure. So those are the kind of players that, Tampa needs, players that are consistent, players that are grinders, like Eric Unrein is a guy that I was talking with a friend of mine who has a podcast, the Bucs or the Bears Bros, and they were really excited. They were talking about how consistent he is. They're saying his stats won't jump out at you, but what you're going to see are intangibles. And I always try to throw that out there. If people watch game film, there are some people that do. You look at plays away from the ball. Don't follow the ball. Look at plays away from the ball, and you get an idea of what kind of player you have. And these guys are some of those guys where you're not going to see them getting pressure on the quarterback, but, you may see them eating up a block or two, possibly stopping a run. And, that's the kind of thing that you need, those intangible players that have those intangibles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on Will Clark,
guys like that. Right. I mean, you've got to get role players in there that go do the dirty work.
Right.
And those guys will do the dirty work and hit whatever percentages and do the job they're supposed to do. And then call on one of them to step up. You hope they've got that game in the tank, that they're like, oh, crap, this guy. But then sometimes you have that guy that has that game. They blow it out. They have this great game. And then it was like, oh, we got to sign him to a long-term contract. This guy's the future. And then he comes back and he's not shit. So you got to be careful making that mixture. You're not going to come out here and have an all-star lineup in every freaking position, right? We've seen teams trying to assemble it. It doesn't work, right? This is a how do I describe this without sounding like a complete jackass? And when did I start caring about that?
Spicy commentary here, so go for it.
Well, listen, I mean, when you think about this game, this is all about testosterone on offense and on defense, right? So you want guys out there on defense that are going to go after it. They're going to go after every down. But all of them want to be the star. Right. So the secret that you have to have is you have to have enough people who are really stars, but the people who want to be stars are making them look good, and they all work together. Right. And yeah, you're going to have arguments here and there where someone wants a little bit more of the spotlight. It's tougher on offense because there's only one ball. On defense, there's only one quarterback. Right. So if it's about sacks, you get the sacks. But when you get to the point where I remember talking when Sapp used to talk about the dogs he hunts with. Right. There were egos on those defensive lines and in that defense, but their job as a unit was to get the job done. What they did was they created a goal right? Give us 13 points and we win the game. I don't care how that happens, right? But we're going to keep every team we play to 12 points or less. If that means we sack the quarterback 28 times, or if that means we get a lot of turnovers, I don't care what it means. They took away the focus on the individual stat to a team stat that their individual performance could contribute to in various ways. And I think that that's a vestige of good leadership that the team had then. And we have to find those sorts of things for this next generation of Buccaneers, whatever it happens to be. We have to get them playing for, like they always say, the name on the front of the jersey and not the name on the back.
That's right. And I would love to see more offensive linemen on their asses. Just last year I saw more our defensive linemen on their asses. I would love to see the dogs. I want to see those guys going out there, just getting after it. I don't know. And again, I'm sounding like a fan. I am a fan and fan first here. But to me, that's what I'm looking for. I'm wanting to watch a game, and I'm wanting to see a defensive lineman get after the quarterback and knock down an offensive lineman on the way getting to him. That's kind of what I would like to see. I'm going to see it, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. Every team needs a solid B. Yeah, a TB Bucs fan just stated every team needs a solid B and C players. Not everybody's a star. Exactly. And that's kind of what we're talking about is just having those kind of players. But I want to jump over to the offensive side of the ball real quick. And with Mike Evans signing, that was something that needed to happen. And that's probably one of my favorite moves in this offseason so far is getting him signed this early, because you saw some of the other moves that were made for wide receivers, and we still have some of the other wide receivers yet to come that are looking to, possibly sign contracts. So, what are your thoughts on that Mike Evans signing? Do you think that was timely, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I ruined a lot of people's conspiracy theory that Mike Evans didn't want to sign back in Tampa, which made me chuckle, because anytime conspiracy theories that are generally based on bullshit conjecture can be thrashed as thoroughly as his signing, I kind of get a little bit excited. I think Mike is clearly a top 5 receiver. I think as a fan, I say he's a top 3 receiver in the league. I love his work ethic. I still have the same issues I have with Mike as a player that I've had for the last 3 years. He needs to figure out whether or not he ever wants to run after he catches it and then make a plan to do so. And I think that we need to find a way to work him into the red zone more, because to be honest, with Mike Evans, Cam Brate, and OJ Howard in the red zone, he should not come away with 7 points at a high clip. It is beyond me how this is a problem. I don't know a single cornerback in the league man up against Mike Evans that if I ran the same option route, fade slant option, just isolate him, run the same damn play 3 times, we'd score 80% of the time. He is that effective.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it freaking rocket science. Just take your bigger, badder dog and score the touchdown. And that's what this man can be. Let him go do that thing.
There you go. I mean,
I love Mike Evans.
Hey, case in point, you look at what he did with a pre-injury Richard Sherman. He just and that, to me, I mean, that guy, I mean, for you consider his size, he's that prototypical cornerback, and Mike Evans, he handled it. And again, that's what I expect to see more of that this season. I expect, with him, with this signing, and, again, it's all talk right now. It's all on paper, but, my expectations for him are pretty high, that he will get back to that, elite status that we'd seen the year before.
Yeah, the reality for Mike Evans, in my opinion, is if he's on the field, he's open.
Yeah. What are you gonna say, Mike?
Sorry, Mike.
Oh, I was gonna say, I mean, I love Mike Evans, and I think, like Derek said, I mean, for us not to be able to score at a high clip in the red zone is beyond me, especially with the weapons that we have, the size, and for only Mike Evans to have 19 attempts or 19 targets in the red zone is baffling. He should be in the top half, the top 5 at least, and for him to come in at 18th in the league is kind of disturbing. I mean, that just shouldn't happen. The guy just has the size and the speed to dominate if necessary, and for him not to get the touches that he deserves down there is it's mind baffling. I mean, it shouldn't happen. So yeah, I mean, that's something that has to change. We have to figure out the red zone, and again, building the offensive line and being able to run the ball more effectively, I think is going to help with that. Again, play action is a big asset to our offense. It kind of makes offense go. But again, I agree with Derek, just run multiple option routes with Mike Evans, isolate him, and find ways to move him around and get him more in the slot, I think is an option as well. And utilize his talents. I mean, the guy's a top 5 receiver.
Yeah. And guys, and I'm gonna go out here and say this, and I've said this since the end of the season. Jameis Winston and Mike Evans will both be the passing and receiving leaders by the end of next season. I strongly believe that. I would be a little disappointed if it didn't happen. Barring any injuries, I feel like that's what's going to happen. That's just how these teams are. I realize that our history with quarterbacks and receivers, but these guys are both very special.
I agree they're special. And to Michael's point earlier, and I don't mean to oversimplify it to one player, but in the red zone, it's interesting. The field gets compressed, more complicated. Some things become easier. When you think about the option route I just talked about, the fade is an attractive option because of the size you can get and the fact that you can eliminate half of the risk by making sure that it can only be caught by your receiver. So it's a worst case if it's well thrown as a 50-50 ball, and Mike Evans is going to win more 50-50 balls than 50-50, right? If a defense has to cheat by rolling coverage underneath the slant zone, they're leaving the post open, and you've got 2 tight ends who can both get to the post effectively. The fact that we make this more complicated is absolutely beyond me. It's not just weird that he only got 19 targets. It's arguably offensive he only got 19 targets. Now, if the Bucs go out and get super big fat guys that are super strong and they can move they can move the line and we can run the ball, I choose the path of least risk. Hand the ball off and let them walk in behind the fat guys. Yes, we get our 7 points, we walk down the other end of the field, and we play football some more. We get our 6, get the extra point, God willing, right? If we do that consistently, then they don't have the option to roll into the slant zone, and I've got my option back, right? I love Coach Cutter. I love Coach Munkin. I think they're good people. They clearly have forgotten more football than I'll ever know. But they better damn well pull their heads out of their collective asses and figure out how to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been on. Go ahead.
Yeah, and on that point, and I've talked about this a lot, with the red zone. My philosophy, it's all about creating space. Like you said, the space down there condenses. You have a shorter field, and you have tighter windows. So if you can find ways to create space and open up, opportunities for others by creating that space, then that's what you have to do. And like you said, if Mike Evans gets taken away, then there has to be an open space where we can attack. And that's something that needs to take place more often. And, watching the tape as much as I do, in my breakdowns, there wasn't a lot of design plays where, guys were taking defenders away and then you're creating space for the other side. I think I saw it one time when it was executed properly. And that was the Miami Dolphins game where they had the Deshaun Jackson coming across. He gets the, wide open touchdown. And then again, earlier they ran the same play where OJ Howard comes across on the other side and he's open for a touchdown. So it's just creating that space down there. And that's something they have to be better at, especially if they're going to utilize the passing game as much as they do. Now, again, if they can run the football, then let's go that way. Like Derek said.
And guys, I have to ask you about one free agent. This is the only free agent I'm going to bring up. We'll probably move on. Lamar Miller. Do you feel like Lamar Miller, does he still have gas in the tank? Is he a running back that could be a difference maker, or what are your thoughts on him?
I don't have a real strong feeling about Lamar, to be honest. But I also, if I don't have almost emotional response to a running back, I consider them all roughly the same, right? I think he's a well-rounded back. He's a well-traveled back. I think any of these backs behind a good line can do good things, can approach 1,000 yards. If they catch the ball, they block well, it's fine. Do I think that he immediately upgrades us? No.
Okay.
But that's just me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, what do you think?
I feel the same. I mean, again, he's a decent running back. I think he's done good things for the Texans. But again, solid back. He can do all the things. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, block, has some good speed. The only thing that concerns me is his durability. At times he misses games. So that's my concern. And I think you find running backs in the draft. I mean, that's where you find your star running backs. You have to draft them and develop them. And, I think we have a pretty good one on the roster. I know a lot of people are not thrilled with Peyton Barber, but I like what the kid brings. And I think we're going to find a good running back in this draft class because it's strong again. And I think there's good value.
So you think that with Peyton Barber and possibly drafting a running back, do you think the Bucs will be okay at the running back position?
Yeah,
I think so.
Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think really this offensive line, I think, is a lot better than people think. Again, I think they need a guard. Absolutely. They need a left guard per se. I think getting Jensen is going to definitely help because he's a good run blocker. And now you're putting Marpet back at his Pro Bowl position, which is going to help. But yeah, I mean, there was holes last season at times. And against the running backs at times just didn't see the holes. I mean, they just didn't hit it well enough. And again, it's also consistency with the running game. How you call it is one thing, and being consistent with that, that makes a difference.
It's interesting the connection between offensive line technique, execution strategy, and the running back ideology. I think one of the reasons why Peyton Barber looked better last year than Doug Martin did is Peyton Barber's a far more decisive back. He's going to pick his hole. Right. He's going to hit the hole. He's not going to dance. He's not going to try and use his position to do cutbacks. It's just not who he is, and that's not neither good or bad, right? That's just who he is. Doug Martin seemed like he was a player who had to prove something and went out and tried to do too much every single play and subsequently didn't do enough on any single play. That line was not going to retain blocks. You weren't going to be able to cut back consistently. And so the definitive running style of a Peyton Barber, who I like too, Michael, I don't disagree with you. I think Peyton brings a lot to the game. I think he's a pretty well-rounded player. He runs hard. He has good speed through the line. He's not a burner, but he's going to get you to the second level. If he gets to the second level, he can cause some trouble. But your point about the upgrade in the offensive line, I think, is really critical here. And I've been incredibly critical of Coach Hop. I was critical when I talked to Ali about it a couple years ago. The offensive line loves him. Joe Thomas, just recently was talking about how he crafted his career. The guy obviously knows the game, but I will be damned if I can figure out what the hell they're doing with substituting the left guard seemingly arbitrarily, having no consistency, right? Even if all we did was pick one, I don't give a shit. Pick an offensive line, pick a tackling dummy, and put him at left guard every play. There'd be better chemistry than what we had last year. Right. And I think Ali was doing really well at center. I think he's a better guard. Do I think he could grow into an amazing center? Yes, because I think he's a uniquely talented, really bright, young, athletic player on the offensive line. But do I think Jensen at center with Ali at guard is a better combo? Bet your ass I do. And as much as I wanted Sweezy to be the second coming, he has been garbage here. Right. So upgrade the offensive line and let any three of us run behind that sumbitch. And I'm going to tell you it's going to be better.
There you go. There you go.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to say hold the presses because it looks like the NFL may have finally figured out what it means to make a catch. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? I mean, right, last year, we go back to 2017, you need a freaking college degree and possibly a couple of certifications to figure out what a catch is in the NFL. And it's just crazy. You gotta do this. You got to do this. You got to catch the ball, knee on the ground. You got to roll 3 times. You got to get up, stand on your head. It was ridiculous. And you know what? How hard is it? How hard is it to make it to say, oh, this was a catch?
Well, you got to realize that what seems to have been a multi-year attempt to beat subjectivity out of officiating reached its pinnacle. Last, the fact that they didn't want to have 2 face mask penalties because no one wanted to have to make the decision whether there was intent or whatever the case may be, even though there is clearly a good reason to have a 5-yard face mask penalty. But God help us all if a referee has to put his balls or her figurative balls on the line to say it's a 5-yard or a 15-yard penalty, right? So the catch issue is the same kind of thing. The league should stop focusing on dumb shit and focus on the things that make the game fun. If you don't seem to you watch the replays and the announcers listen, man, this looks like it should be a catch to me, but they're going to overrule it. Even the announcers know. Everyone knows what a catch is. And I'm okay with you got to retain control in the end zone. Like having differences in the end zone versus in the field of play, I can kind of get that. Like I'm all right with that argument. But Jesus, like you said, don't make it be quantum physics.
Yeah, they're doing too much.
Yeah. I mean, my point is, last time I checked, ground can't cause a fumble. So if you catch the ball and you take 2 steps, and the ball pops out because the ground causes it to, then it should be a catch. I mean, that's
fair.
It's plain and simple. I mean, they just try to make this like Derek said. I mean, it's not supposed to be rocket science. Science. I mean, just just let them play football. And again, if you're catching the ball before you get to the end zone and you break the plane and the ball pops out, that should still be a touchdown because it broke the plane. It broke the goal line. So, just all this crap, the Des Bryant and that's the catch.
I'm going to stop you right. I'm going to stop you right there. It feels good for me to say that wasn't a catch. To every Dallas Cowboy fan out there, it wasn't a catch. Even though it was a catch, it should have been a catch, but it wasn't. The referees ruled it wasn't. It wasn't a catch. So let's move on to 2018, okay? Because I keep hearing that.
Yeah.
Even right now, I'm hearing people say, "Oh, that should have been a catch." No, it wasn't a catch. The ref said it wasn't a catch, so it wasn't a catch. So let's move on. But here we are.
A more recent one. More recent one last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers tight end. I mean, that was a catch. I mean, that's a touchdown. It's just ridiculous, that kind of stuff. Where, again, like Derek said, they're just trying to make the game way too hard. This is football. You have simple rules to follow by, and just keep it simple.
Yeah.
But the reality is, think about how many plays are in a game and how many calls we end up bitching about to this level. Yeah, we may bitch day to day about a PI that wasn't called or a hold that was,
right.
But these sort of amazingly critical calls that they screw up that change the outcome of a game are relatively rare. I think in general, officiating does a pretty good job, and I don't like saying that because I always want to bitch about officiating. But the old adage is also true there. Don't leave it up to the officials, right? Sometimes games are going to be close. It's just like if you're a boxer, don't let it go to the card. You let it go to the card, it's on you. Knock a dude out, right? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty straightforward when it comes to that.
Hey, I've got a quick question. I was just looking at the chat here. Mark Goodman was talking about J.R. Sweezy. Is he 100% healthy? Have you heard of any injuries that he's dealing with? Is it possible that he's dealing with lingering injuries, or he's just had a bad season?
He's not healthy.
I haven't heard of any injuries. It was never reported from what I understand. When I watched him play, it didn't look like he was laboring, but I mean, that's so weird to try and watch film and determine whether someone's able to move or not. For guys of that size, it's interesting because a lot of times, we even jokingly say with pejoratives like, oh, the fat guys do this, I do it all the time, right? So for a man of that size to be as athletic as he is freakish, right? It's astonishing what these guys can do. Is it possible that before his back issue, he was a half second faster and 5% stronger? If his lateral motion was better, maybe that makes a difference. I rarely will try and do the emotional transference where I say, I don't think he cares. It's so hard to really do that. I think as fans, people do it a lot, and it is a fool's errand in my opinion. But I think right now he's just playing bad football. Now, whether it's injury or not, that's up to the coaching staff. I don't care what your contract is. And I know this is hard. And this is why I'm a fan of a 5-year contract for coaching staff, by the way, which is also something people hate. If you're not playing, get your ass to the bench.
Yeah.
I don't care what your contract is. If you can't block, get to the bench.
Yeah, it looks like Ren was saying that Jason Like said at the combine that Sweezy's still rehabbing. I was unaware of that.
Well, what's he going to say? Because he'll be, everyone's rehabbing. You know what? Drew Brees rehabs every workout, and that's a fact. That's from people who play with him. He had a rotator cuff injury that you rehab for the rest of your life.
Right.
Still throws for 1 trillion yards a game just against us.
Yeah, filthy Madden yards. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for him to retire. I'll be a lot happier. So,
yeah, I mean, as far as Sweezy goes,
he may have had an ankle injury too, but the big issue was a back injury, if I recall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to point to because, my friend that I run my site with, Real Bucs Talk, he's a physical therapist, and he does a lot of the film breakdown, and he was looking at Sweezy, and just his range of motion is just not the same. It's he can't really turn his head, and that's what I see as far as when he's trying to pull. It causes issues. So I think it's something with the back again, but like Derek says, bad play is bad play, and he just wasn't very good last year.
Yeah.
And again, that could be due to having a year off. That plays into it as well. But he hasn't been the same player.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what he does this season here. Again, somebody would mention it was an ankle injury. Back injuries are something that's just hard to diagnose it. I mean, if for the casual fan, for us, I couldn't look at you and tell if you had a back injury. You could tell me you've got a back injury. I wouldn't have the slightest clue if you did or not. So,
well, the challenge with Michael, it's interesting that your partner says that might be a neck, because his injury was lumbar. So it's interesting that it could reflect all the way up. Now it's possible. The back injuries are really weird. Where the pain refers is odd. Well, typically cervical spine will refer down the arm and into the shoulders. Lumbar will refer down the leg and in the hips. So that's why I said lateral motion I would have bought if it was tied to his back. But I mean, again, who knows, right? But we bought it, and he didn't perform last year. He may well be recovering, and I feel bad, just like Noah Spence, right? I mean, this guy's shoulder is made out of Play-Doh at this point. I hope they can find some way to build a shoulder for the guy, because he's got heart, and someone's got to teach him an inside move, and then he could be dangerous. But until that happens, he's just a guy that doesn't play football for us.
Yeah, he's not benefiting us. Again, it goes back to the whole injury thing. I mean, he's a guy that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers depended on in the beginning of the season. He was one of those guys that they were counting on to get pressure on the quarterback. And once he had that injury, you're looking at a totally different defensive line. And again, he's been rehabbing. I've seen the pictures, but it just remains to be seen what he can do. Is this something that will affect him the rest of his life? I don't know. So it's kind of.
And Mark followed on that we should have terminated the contract as soon as they found out about the bad back. What's interesting is, before we made the contract, our trainers went and evaluated, and you do due diligence. And sometimes you make bets on that. And the same thing you do when you have guys that are injured coming out of the draft, right? You go do your evaluation. Whoever your training staff is who does that assessment, you bet on those guys or gals to make the right call, right? This is essentially a little bit of a Vegas activity, because at that level, most folks are going to come in with some kind of dings, right? Especially if you're talking about a guy on a free agent contract. They're going to have played their contract, and they're going to be injured. It's not like you got guys fresh out of college who, by the way, oftentimes have already had their second knee surgery, right? But you have to trust those guys. And if we only look at this through the lens of hindsight, then yeah, I mean, you can be a smart ass at a bar or whatever, but generally speaking, it's really tough, because for every one of those that you make the bad call on, we got to go back and find some that we made good calls on too. So it's a tricky game. It certainly looks crappy from the benefit of hindsight, though.
Yeah, this is the comment of the night. Like paying Darrelle Revis $16 million to rehab his ACL. That was that's basically what it was. That's what it was. So I don't know. Serious question. Is Light reloading or retrying? Jensen equals Sweezy attitude. Allen equal base. Baker run stuffer. Curry Ayers third down D lineman. Fellow like the Bucs. Feel like the Bucs just signed these type of players. Again, it remains to be seen. If they can stay healthy and they can stay on the field, they will contribute to this team being better than it was last year.
Listen, Ren does that I actually really like a lot. I mean, we joke around. I saw he made an Eau Claire comment earlier, and so we go back and forth on some things. But the reality is, what he's pointing out, I think, is a really astute observation. I think what you're seeing is a pattern where Jason and the team feel that those were the pieces that we needed the previous year. They went out and found pieces. They shoved them in the puzzle, and they didn't fit. He still thinks he needs those same pieces, or at least those are the most important pieces to replace, and he's going to go try again. He doesn't need a new 3-tech. He doesn't need, new linebacking core. He needs depth in linebacking. So I do think you're seeing a consistency of approach. Now, it's certainly an approach you can argue with, but I think that consistency is intriguing, and I think it's something that bears, deep conversation. So I think it's a good point that Ren brings up.
Yeah, most definitely. How do you feel about that though? I mean, you look at Allen equals Baker run stuffer, Curry Ayers third down D lineman. Wait, I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, do you see that the same way?
Yeah, I do. I think they went after the right positions last year, output out of the people that they went for. They also had concurrently, they had injuries to the places where they didn't think they had to add more meat. And I think that was probably the biggest mistake. And I think that's an area where fans rightfully are concerned and upset. We still don't have speed off the edge to rush a passer. If we are betting all of our chips on Noah Spence, we are stupid. And that's not because he's a bad guy. That's not because he can't turn out to be a good player. It's because we've already seen that he is fragile. He will play through pain. He'll play with his shoulder hanging off. It's not about heart or balls or any of that stuff. It's about can't do it. So you've got to have other folks who can come off the edge. I think that if we don't see that in the draft, we don't see them go get that in camp, and please, if you're one of those guys who thinks, well, if we're cut from the other, argue with me about free agents or acquisitions, and that's where you start, the conversation is over because you're a fucking moron, right? People being cut doesn't mean they're not good players. It means they didn't fit there. Rest assured, anyone who plays with an NFL uniform is better at their job than most humans will ever be at everything they do, other than maybe parenting.
Yeah,
they are different than us.
I got roasted by Greg Allman because I was trying to point out, like, the 2014 draft. I was pointing out that these guys were playing on different teams, like Austin Seferian-Jenkins. I know they re-signed Mike Evans, Sims. We still haven't gotten to the end of free agency. Sims could end up somewhere else. I don't know, but just some of these players are ending up on different places. And basically, his thoughts to me were they didn't make it here, so it doesn't count. Basically, the GM screwed up on the draft because these guys aren't contributing for the Tampa Bay Bucs. But I've always, and maybe I'm wrong here, and I'm in my just hindsight, but I've always thought that if a GM brings a guy in like an ASJ, and ASJ is a knucklehead and he doesn't do what he's supposed to do here, and he ends up somewhere else, that's not the GM's fault. It kind of could be based on the interviews and stuff like that. But again, he's still a quality player. He ended up signing for what, $7 million a year with Jacksonville. And again, I have a lot of confidence in Jason Light. I know he's missed on some, but he's hit on quite a few. And as we get down the years, you'll see that when you're trying to re-sign some of these guys that he's drafted, just how important some of these draft picks were. Because as I look back from Dominic to Bruce Allen, I saw a lot of misses, more misses than hits. And that's why you see the cupboard bare in a lot of different positions. When Jason Light got here, this team on both sides of the ball was horrible. So again, I know maybe I'm wrong in how I'm looking at this, but assessing talent to me is very important in a GM, not just managing money.
Well, I always go back to this, and I haven't had the time to do the analysis. So if anyone out there does, I would highly encourage it to be done. Maybe we can crowdsource it amongst all the Bucs podcasts. Everyone take a couple of teams. I think if you look at the hits and misses, first we have to come up with some sort of an objective way to rate hit and miss. So number of seasons played, stats at a particular position. We have to come up with a set of criteria, right? And then judge every team and look at the efficacy across regimes, right? So what year is the coaching staff in? What year is the GM in? How long are their contract been, et cetera, et cetera. My guess is completely gut call. Other than the Patriots and probably the Steelers, the efficacy rate's going to be roughly the same. Just like if you look at head coaches that get recycled every freaking time you need a head coach, they all hover just below 500. Right? It's math. It's not sexy. It takes away the fun of this. And I know everyone thinks it's like a Cracker Jack box. You're going to open it up and you get a magical rookie or a magical free agent that makes everything better and makes your heart happy. That's not what it is, guys. And that doesn't take joy away from the game. It just means, guess what? You're not going to beat the guy playing 3-card money. You're just not going to do it. This is the way it works. All those guys that people draft are talented guys. Can we have determined that ASJ was a knucklehead beforehand? Possibly. I don't know. I could tell you he couldn't block beforehand, and I watched it entire training camp and told people he'd never be able to block. His damn torso was too long. right? It's physics. He wasn't going to be a blocking tight end. So if you want to draft a slot receiver who's slow, or if you want, this is the old argument for what's his name? Crap. He was a tight end in the Pewter Report. Tim Wright.
Was it Tim Wright?
Yeah. He really, Jay was super tall. So yeah, you could make an argument that you could to spread him out as a split end. He wasn't ever going to be a tight end, right? So some of those things I think you just swing and miss on, and you could have found that out. You run him through blocking drills and you watch it and you go, if you're a real arrogant coach, maybe you're like, well, I can beat physics, but generally speaking, physics wins.
There you go. So, again,
and on to that point. Yeah, on that point, it's, I look at it this way. It's all about situations, and, everyone that goes in the NFL is pretty talented, but again, it's all about, putting these players in positions to succeed, and finding guys that, either fill a role or understand how to win in this league and, win their one-on-one matchups. It's, and you look at free agency, again, like we said earlier, the good free agents are not going to be available. And it's very rare that you find a free agent like a Simeon Rice or a Brad Johnson or, Vincent Jackson for recent, memory, or even a Clinton McDonald, guys that are going to come in and they're going to fill a role and they're going to produce and be consistent. And again, that's tough. It's hard to judge because, these guys are let go for a reason. They're available because they didn't work out at their first stop. It just didn't work out because of situation, coaching, scheme. All that plays a part into it. And I think if you can find that, money. Yep, exactly. You look at Vinny Curry. Vinny Curry probably should not have been available, but the Bucs got lucked out there and picked him up, and they made an upgrade at that position, in my opinion. So again, it's about circumstance and situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, there's one position I do want to talk about, because at the beginning of 2017, people they were out on the ledge, and I had to provide counseling for people. The kicking position. It looks like the Bucs went out and got a free agent kicker, and again, Jason Light looks at film as more than we do. I mean, this is his job. This is what he does. And they've identified this kicker, and Cannizzaro. Am I pronouncing his name right? Cannizzaro.
Close.
Yeah.
Cannizzaro.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this a good idea? I mean, did they reach paying him what they paid him? Was this a good move to help this team?
Solid move. I mean, I liked Murray, to be honest, but I understand they wanted to get better at the kickoffs, have deeper kickoffs, a guy that can get touchbacks and help with special teams. I mean, 84% kicker. I think he's okay. But again, I worry about his numbers inside, outside of the 40, the money range, the 40-yard field goals. That's where you have to be consistent, because a lot of your field goals are 40 plus. So that kind of concerns me. But again, he's a veteran, and he's been pretty consistent for his career.
Yeah. And again, it's an issue that needs to be addressed. They need to get a consistent kicker in there, a la Matt Bryant. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are multiple. One, I love that everyone looks back at the Matt Bryant decision as if it was some obviously bad decision. It wasn't. Go check your history books. There were injuries involved. There's all sorts of stuff around Matt Bryant. I love Matt Bryant like the next guy, but it wasn't an obvious decision any more so than it's obvious that Pat Murray is the future of kicking, which is how I know I sound and Chris does as well. I happen to believe that Pat was injured last year. And that's why he suffered on his depths of kickoffs. But I have no problem with having two kickers in camp. I think you should always have two kickers in camp. Otherwise, you beat the hell out of the left kicker you have in camp.
So will he be brought back to compete, Murray?
I hope so.
If I were them, I would. because you opened up with the money that they're paying for the other kicker. I've always been fascinated when fans worry about that kind of contract. Like, that contract is inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. So I guarantee you, and other people are starting to realize that our cap guys are pretty good. We may dick up a bunch of things. We typically don't screw up contracts that badly now, somehow. So bring in another camp leg, see what's going on. If you're worried about kickoff depth, great. Worry about kickoff depth. 40 yards and out, guess what? That's where all kickers start to trail off. That's the way it works. It's the kicks we all remember, because it's when you're stretching to get into field goal range, and means the game's usually on the line, right? So they're the kicks we remember. We forget about the 30-yarders that people miss that, had they made, it would have been in different situational positions during the game, where instead of not calling a blitz on the third down, we had to call a blitz to get a turnover, right? There's this cascading effect that losing points throughout a game causes, but we only ever remember the last kick of a game. So I like Pat Murray. I don't care who they bring in. Kickers are kickers. I think they should ban kicking from football. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I like the XFL. I think Vince McMahon was onto something.
Yeah.
So I keep seeing, I'm seeing a lot of people talking about trading back, and that's the other question I had for you. Do you think that this draft is strong to where the Bucs could trade back and get value from picks?
Possible, but you guys know that I'm not a draft guy, right? I don't spend enough time watching college to consider myself an expert on college players. But I'm always best player available. The only contentious position that I've taken, and everyone calls me out on, is, despite the fact that I love Derwin James as a human being, I think he's a unique talent. I think whoever gets him is going to be incredibly lucky. They're going to have a player who will lay it on the line on every single play, and I've seen it firsthand. If you have dreams he's going to be a cornerback, you're wrong. He's not. He's an exceptional safety, and I do not take a safety at 7. It's just not going to happen. But that's it. I do think they could trade back potentially, but that's like, lots of guys think they're going to get laid when they go to a bar, but it takes 2 to do that. So exactly. You got to find a trade partner.
Yeah, and with all the moves with Buffalo and the Jets, I mean, these guys are going to go head up. This is going to be probably, in my opinion, this will be my favorite part of the NFL coming up, is just watching the Jets and the Bills battle each other, because of what they're doing with the draft and what they're doing in free agency. Because they, in my opinion, they feel like, they're the guys that are competing for the championship in their division, just the way that they're going at each other. So we'll just kind of have to see what happens, but that's going to be one of those things that I'll definitely be keeping an eye on. Mm-hmm. And goodness, we've been at this an hour. So what I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Derek, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. I want you to take a few minutes to tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and what you're working on next, because folks, it's going to be, it's important. Again, if you can give, if you're doing good and you can help others, I really feel like this is important. And, I want to give you as much time as you need to kind of talk about it. So what do you have going on right now?
No, I appreciate that. We talked a little bit before the show. Right now, real life is kicking my ass, which is why I've been slow on a lot of things. Just contrary to popular, I am not related to Hugh Hefner or Brad Pitt, so I do have to work for a living. But the fun part is we've got our golf tournament coming up for What the Buck Really Matters. For those of you who don't know, we really have 2 structures. We have What the Buck, which is our podcast and broadcast website platform, and then we have our charitable organization, which is What the Buck Really Matters, a 501c3 organization. We have been very, very fortunate to have amazing people in the community help us out. Last year, our backpack drive, we had some problems going towards it. We had some things fall apart. We put out a big call for help, and people leapt to help us out. We ended up doing over 800 backpacks to needy kids in the Tampa Bay area. It was exactly what we needed to have happen at the time we needed it, because sometimes when you're out there begging for things all the time, it can get pretty depressing, and people stood up so hard. It was amazing. It was truly great. And this year, because of the hard work of the teams that we work with and the folks that we collaborate with, we're already funded to get to almost 2,000 backpacks to the Tampa Bay community. So we're excited. But the 21st of April, we have our 4th annual Trunk Slammers Invitation, which benefits Voice Cancer Research and Advocacy Group here in Tampa. We love the folks at One Voice. They do amazing work. And if you're interested in that, if you go to WTBreallymatters.org, It will redirect you. We still need sponsors. We need players. We need donations, and it can be simple things. If you've got a timeshare that you don't use that you can give us to put into a raffle package. If you have the money and are interested in the whole sponsorship, we have an anonymous donor who is currently matching whole sponsorship. So if you buy a $250 whole sponsorship, that donor will match that $250. He did, or she did, whoever it was, did 10 matches. I think we've only done 4 so far. So there's six slots available. But really, it all comes down to trying to help the area, the Tampa Bay area. So that's above and beyond what we do with the podcast. And latest news was Jason De La Torre was kind enough to take over as editor-in-chief of the website, and our content rate has gone up, I don't know, 5 orders of magnitude or some ridiculous amount. So he's doing a great job, and our writer's doing a great job. And getting to work with you guys in the podcast community and the other media members in Tampa Bay has been phenomenal.
Yeah, man. I can't thank you enough for what you do, and you'll definitely be, hearing from me. I would like to do as much as I can to help your organization. Michael Pless, how about you? Let me. What do you got? What do you got going on? And how can people reach you? I think he's frozen. What is that? What was that show? That Disney movie, Frozen? Yeah, he's frozen. But anyway, I'm going to get on here. Basically, for me, I want to thank everybody. I'm getting ready to do a radio show on Tan Talk Radio. It'll be the first Tuesday of the month. All you guys that are able to call in or they're able to get in the chat, I want to see you guys with that same energy calling in and just telling people what you think. Just giving us a opportunity to talk about Bucs football and how this goes. This Saturday, I'm doing a special show on a guy, Darren Wilson. You may have seen some of his tweets around. He's a guy, he was an undrafted free agent with the New York Jets, picked him up in 2016. He's a guy that's been grinding, he's been working hard, been staying busy to try to latch on to a team. It was really interesting to talk to him. When we watch the draft, when we watch the combines, we see these guys, but we really don't know a lot of their story. Some guys that, NFL Network may push and we may see their story, but the guy that, isn't elite or isn't up there with everybody else, just getting to hear his story and how he's working hard and trying to stay busy and get every opportunity he gets, trying to make a team. So I will have him on this Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tan Talk. And I have the link on Twitter, and I'll probably, try to shoot it around on Facebook as well. If you can call in, I would really appreciate it. I have this hour, and then starting next month, first Tuesday of the month, you can catch me on Tan Talk Radio, and I'll just be talking Bucs football. Michael Pless, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Yes, you can follow us at Real Bucs Talk. Again, right now it's just focusing on the draft and breaking down prospects, trying to see who can be fits for this Buccaneers team, and just trying to educate and help Bucs fans understand how this team is going to shape up and try to give them a point of view of Jason Light and how he's going to operate. And I think he's going to add a lot of talent and go best player available. And I think it's going to be another good draft like 2017.
Oh yeah. Yeah, most definitely. And again, I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to ask old school, but I'm going to ask you, who do you see the Bucs taking? I mean, just the way that everything is shaking up right now.
Well, right now, I mean, it looks like it's Derwin James. I mean, based off the fans, everyone's jumped on his bandwagon, and I agree with Derek. I think he's a hell of a player, and I think he would be someone special that could help this team and really help the leadership of this defense and give them that nasty dog that they need, especially back there. But I don't know. I mean, it really depends on who's available. I love Quentin Nelson. That's my guy. If Quentin Nelson is there somehow, that would be my pick. Bradley Chubb again would be awesome, but I think he's going to be gone. All these guys are probably going to be gone. You look at the elite players, Saquon Barkley, Quentin Nelson, Chubb, they're all going to be pretty much taken. Obviously I love to trade down, but my dark horse is Harold Landry or Marcus Davenport. I think they need an edge player, a guy that can come off the edge and help them in the pass rush. And if they can get one of those two guys, I'd be ecstatic with that as well.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate both of you. Again, you have an open invitation, Derek. Anytime you want to come on, you're always welcome. And again, as we get closer to the draft, once we get into the season, I'll definitely be inviting you on to talk more Bucs football. So
I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Hey, so that's pretty much it for us. And thank you everybody in the chat. I'm sorry with the guests and everything. I'm sorry I didn't focus more on the chat. But I'll make sure to get your comments the next couple of weeks as we move forward. And I can't thank you guys enough for contributing to the show by being in the chat. It's great. You're getting to give your opinion. And again, I hope that I can get you guys to come on this Saturday and, first Tuesday every month on the radio and just call in and give your opinion. But that's pretty much it for us tonight. And I want to thank everybody and have a good night.